And so, after he had patiently endured, he obtained the promise.
See, but Abraham didn't automatically get it right away. It says, so after he had patiently endured. He had to patiently endure. That's the title of the lesson. Patience and endurance needed for salvation. So that's what it said Abraham did. And if we going to be followers of him, that's what we going to have to do, right?
That's right. That's
what it's going to take. So after he had patiently endured, he obtained the promise. Now let's go back and we're going to look at not Abraham, but some more people. Genesis 29. We're going to start off with Abraham's grandson. We're going to look at an example of patience that we don't exhibit nowadays. Genesis 29. This is Abraham's grandson, of course, Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, which is where the 12 sons or 12 tribes of Israel came from. But let's see him. Because I find out the most impatient people is Israel. But we're going to look at the father of Israel. We're going to look at Jacob and see how he operated. And you look around and see if Israel operating like this today. Even many of us in here don't come close to nothing like this. Genesis 29. Now this is Israel. This is Jacob. 29 and 18. Go ahead.
And Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter.
Now he talking to Rachel's father, Laban. And he told him, he loved Rachel, and he told the man, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. Boy, you know, a Jake don't wait 7 minutes before he try to sleep with a woman nowadays. Let alone come close to 7 years. But this is what Jacob said, because they understood that it took some patience concerning things. Especially, the more important it gets, the more patience you need to be exhibiting. So it said, look, Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve these 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. I mean, you got people, hey, they know each other seven days and they've been done to do. Some sooner than that, but go ahead.
And Laban said, it is better that I give her to thee than that I should give her to another man. Abide with me.
Go ahead.
And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel.
That means all the 7 years, he didn't sleep with her at all. Because he had to be patient and wait on it. Boy, things would be a whole lot better if we did that. You won't have people getting together and breaking up, getting together and breaking up if they did this with it.
No, sir.
But that's what Jacob did. It said, and Jacob served, now this is the father of Israel. Boy, a whole lot of us Israelites not following his example, are we? But Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed what?
And they seemed unto him but a few days. For the love he had to her.
He said, and it went by just like that because he really wanted this woman. Now you say, well, I ain't gonna be waiting 7 years for no woman. And look, you be waiting 7 years anyway because you've been made so many mistakes. By the time you get what the Lord had, you've been messed up 20 years. So that shows you the importance of patience. He said he served 7 years, and they seemed but a few days to him. Go ahead, verse 21.
And Jacob said unto Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her.
So now it took 7 years, and now he's finally getting ready to sleep with his wife. That's what he said. Now, hey, I done did my time. I have been patient. Time is up. Then he got jacked around and had to wait some more time. But he still did that. You can read on. He ended up, because he gave him the other daughter first. And he ended up having to go some more years to get the one that he really wanted. But yet and still, that show you that they was inbred with some patience in those days, wasn't it? See, this is the same thing we need. And you say, well, I ain't going to be waiting that long. Well, you're just going to be bumping your head in the meantime. And you still going to have to wait in the end. If the Lord bless you after all the mistakes you done made. But now, go to the 39th chapter. You can read the rest of that on your own. See, that's just an example on how they understood it took patience to get a blessing from God, but we don't understand none of that nowadays. We want it yesterday. A man and a woman get together now, they know each other for 5 minutes, they've been and slept together. And then they trying to figure out what we're going to do now. Look, you should have waited.
Amen.
Before trying to figure that out later. Genesis 39. Verse 20. This is another servant of God. This was Jacob's son, Joseph. 39 and verse 20. We're going to see what happened to him, what he had to be patient concerning and endure. 39 and 20. Go ahead.
And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound. And he was there in the prison. Okay,
now Joseph got put in prison, what we call the joint now. He got put in the joint. It's like we get a lot of letters. But Brother Nehemiah been answering some letters from some brothers in prison. Boy, they got a lot of time. They be writing some books. But we got a lot of brothers in prison, and some of them, you know, we know a lot of them have done something to be there. Obviously, we know some of them are innocent. And sometimes I seen brothers that's claiming innocence, they act like, hey, that's the end of the world, that they in jail for something that they didn't do. And some of them probably lying. They probably did something. But either way, even if you're in jail for something you didn't do, that's bad, but you're not the first. Because this is what happened to Joseph. And what did he do? Did he get bitter and start beating up everybody in jail? No. He patiently waited on the Lord because he knew God was in control. He knew God held the key to everything he needed.
Amen.
So it's telling you here, it said Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in the prison. And we know from the record, Joseph hadn't done nothing wrong. He was definitely innocent. Because the man's wife tried to sleep with him, and he ran from the woman. First, he tried to play her off a number of times. She was like, come on, lay with me. He said, woman, quit tripping. This man put me over everything in his house, and the only thing he told me not to touch is you, because you his wife, obviously. So how can I do that in the sight of God, and it'll be just disrespectful to the man, obviously. He done gave me everything in his house, and of course told me to keep my hands off of you. So he didn't do it. He played off. Finally, the woman basically attacked him. She attacked him, and he ran. That show you ain't no brother in the world got to let a woman force him. You can't even plead that. You can't even plead that. You ain't got to let no woman force you. But Joseph, he left. He got out of town and said, hey, this ain't getting ready to happen. And then he still ended up going to jail. Ain't that a shame? You know, the average brother said, man, I should have went on and slept with the woman then. They ain't got me up in jail. I ain't did nothing. Shoot, I should have went on. No, Joseph knew what he was doing. But he ended up paying for doing the right thing, end up in prison. Go ahead, verse 21.
But the Lord was with Joseph.
Oh, of course the Lord was with him because he hadn't done nothing wrong. So, hey, you got to be somewhere in life. If it's your time to be in prison, just deal with that the best you can deal with that. Be patient and endure that. That's what Joseph did, right?
Amen.
It said the Lord was with Joseph and did what?
And showed him mercy. And gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison.
See, now the Lord blessed him in prison. Where he at? He showed him favor in the whoever that is, the warden or whoever it was, he gave him favor. Well, hey, Joseph was running things. Go ahead.
And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison.
See, Joseph didn't have to hurt nobody or stab nobody or shank nobody, but he was running the joint. All because the Lord made it that way. Go ahead.
And whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was not under his hand, because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper.
See, the Lord was still with him. And he hadn't transgressed against God. But now he still had to deal with this. See, a lot of us have been crying the blues. Oh, God ain't right. See, God done this to I tell you, we don't even want to go through nothing when we done something wrong. You done something wrong and the hammer come down, you be crying to God, God, why you let her? Why you think? Why me, God? Why me? Like my uncle say all the time, why not you? So Joseph dealt with his, didn't he? He patiently dealt with it. Then let's see what happened in the end. Go to Psalm 105. We can read about it here, but it's a little quicker to read about it in Psalm because it's going to sum it up for us, and that's all we want. Psalm 105. But this is some examples of some patience that even our forefathers had. Just like we read about Joseph's father, Jacob, who made a deal to serve 7 years for a woman. That shows you he knew about some patience already. And if we took just a little bit of that principle that he had, we wouldn't get in and out of the mistakes that we get in and out of nowadays. Psalm 105, and we're going to pick it up at verse 17. It's going to be a continuation of what we were just reading about Joseph in prison. Psalm 105 and verse 17. Okay, go ahead.
He sent a man before them, even Joseph, who was sold for a servant. See,
this is rehearsing what we read about Joseph, even how the Lord was actually working with Joseph. That was all a part of the plan, because before Joseph went to prison for not sleeping with the man's wife, he had already, from his own brothers, got sold into bondage in Egypt in the first place. That's how he got to Egypt. They got sold. But see, God had a plan in that, even though Israel, the brothers, was wrong and operating wickedly for doing it. They was envious of Joseph because of how the Lord had blessed them. So they was wrong, but the Lord still, he'd work out some wrong for good when he dealing with it. So that's what he's talking about. He sent a man before them, talking about how he planted Joseph in Egypt as preparation to save Israel when the famine came. Because Joseph had the vision while he was in Egypt, or he interpreted for Pharaoh the dream on how to survive during this famine. So he sent a man before them, even Joseph, who was sold for a servant. That's before he went to prison now. But go ahead, verse 18.
Whose feet they hurt with fetters. He was laid in iron.
See, whose feet they hurt with fetters. He was laid in iron. This is what Joseph had to deal with. And we saw where he ended up going to prison, hadn't done nothing wrong. But the Lord was still with him. Go ahead, 19.
Until the time that his word came. The word of the Lord tried him.
See, he said, until the time that his word came. The word of the Lord tried him. See, Joseph went through a trial, but he patiently dealt with it, didn't he? Mm-hmm. He patiently dealt with it. Hadn't done nothing wrong. The man ended up in prison, but he just did the best he could do in that situation. Whatever situation you in, just patiently deal with it. Go ahead.
The king sent and loosed him.
See, now all of a sudden, Joseph got loose because they found out he knew how to interpret them dreams and they need some help. They said, look, we know somebody that can do it, but he in prison down there. He said, go get him. So the king sent and loosed him. What happened to Joseph after that? Go ahead.
Even the ruler of the people, and let him go free.
He went free, but how did he go free? Go ahead.
He made him lord of his house and ruler of all his substance.
Oh, Joseph became the ruler over all of Egypt. That's something, boy. You see what happened if you have some patience like Joseph had? He went from being a prisoner to running the whole country. He made him lord of his house and rule of all his substance. Go ahead.
To bind his princesses at his pleasure and teach his senators wisdom.
See, now all of a sudden he running Pharaoh's leaders. He come from prison running them to bind his princes. He binding Pharaoh's princes at his pleasure and teaching Pharaoh's senators wisdom.